The wind moved strangely through Oja Market that night. Not the normal warm wind that carried the smell of roasted corn and palm oil during the day. This wind was cold, thin, almost whispering through the empty wooden stalls. By midnight, the market should have been completely silent. Every shop closed. Every lantern out. But one lantern was still burning. It hung outside a small wooden stall near the center of the market, Mama Olanike's food stall. Everyone in the village knew her. She was the sweet old woman who fed hungry children for free, the woman who helped widows, the one who prayed loudly every Sunday morning. People trusted her more than the village chief. But tonight, something about that lantern felt wrong. Across the dark street, Tunde crouched behind a pile of empty baskets, watching carefully. He was only 16 years old, but tonight curiosity had dragged him somewhere he probably shouldn't be. Earlier that evening, Tunde had been passing through the market when he noticed something strange. Mama Olanike was closing her stall like usual, but instead of leaving for home like everyone else, she locked the front door. Then walked behind the stall. And disappeared. Not toward the road. Not toward the village. But toward the old storage building behind the market, a place nobody used anymore. That was what made Tunde follow her. At first, he told himself it was nothing. Maybe she stored extra food there. Maybe she forgot something. But when he reached the back of the building, he heard voices. Low voices. Whispering. More than one person. And then, something else. A slow rhythmic sound. Thump. 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 Like something heavy being placed on wood. Tunde's stomach tightened. He slowly moved closer to a cracked wooden window. The lantern light from inside spilled through the broken boards. And then he looked in. The moment his eyes adjusted to the dim yellow light, his entire body froze. Inside the room, 4 people were kneeling on the floor, all wearing dark cloth robes. Their heads bowed. In the center of the room stood Mama Olanike. But she didn't look like the sweet old woman everyone knew. Her back was straight. Her face cold. Her glasses reflected the lantern light as she stared down at the people kneeling before her. In front of her stood a large wooden table. And on that table were objects Tunde had never seen before. Strange carved statues. Old dusty books. Bowls filled with thick dark liquid. And symbols drawn across the table with something that looked like red powder. The air inside the room looked thick, heavy, like smoke. One of the kneeling figures spoke. His voice shook with fear. "Mama, we brought what you asked for." Mama Olanike slowly lifted her hand. Silence filled the room. Then she spoke. Her voice was calm. Cold. Almost emotionless. "Good." Tunde felt his heartbeat slam against his chest. This wasn't the woman who laughed with children every morning. This was someone else. Someone darker. Mama Olanike slowly stepped toward the table. Then she said something that made the fear inside Tunde explode. "The spirits are hungry again tonight." One of the kneeling people started trembling. "But, Mama, we already gave them someone last week." Mama Olanike's eyes snapped toward him. Sharp. Dangerous. "The spirits do not care about last week." Her voice dropped lower. "They demand another." Tunde's breath caught in his throat. Another, what? Before he could think, a loud crack came from the wooden board under his foot outside the window. Inside the room, every head turned instantly toward the sound. Mama Olanike's eyes slowly moved toward the window. Todd turned. And for the first time that night, she smiled. But it wasn't the kind smile. It was the smile of someone who had just found something. Or someone she needed. Then she whispered softly. Someone is listening. The lantern inside flickered. And the door of the building suddenly swung open. The wooden door of the abandoned storage house burst open with a loud bang. Ton didn't wait to see who was coming out. His body moved before his mind could think. He ran. His sandals slapped hard against the dusty ground of Oja Market, echoing through the silent night. Every dark stall and hanging cloth looked like a shadow ready to grab him. Behind him, he heard footsteps. Fast. Heavy. Someone was chasing him. Or maybe more than one person. Ton's lungs burned as he ran past the empty fruit stands. His heart pounded so loud he could barely hear anything else. Then suddenly, a voice cut through the darkness. Come. Cold. Terrifying. Run all you want, child. It was Mama Olanike. Her voice somehow carried through the entire empty market. You already saw too much. Ton didn't look back. He turned a corner between two wooden stalls and jumped over a broken crate, breathing hard. How did she get outside so fast? She had been inside the building just seconds ago. The thought made his stomach twist. As he reached the end of the market road, he finally slowed and hid behind a tall stack of old grain sacks. Silence returned. No footsteps. No voices. Only the distant sound of wind moving through hanging metal signs. Ton slowly peeked around the corner. The market looked empty again. Too empty. For a moment, he wondered if he had imagined everything. Maybe he misunderstood what he saw. Maybe those bowls and books were just part of some strange prayer ceremony. Maybe. Then he heard something behind him. Soft. Right next to his ear. A whisper. You shouldn't have looked through that window. Ton spun around in pure terror. But no one was there. The sacks behind him shifted slightly, as if someone had just moved away. His chest tightened. Something felt very wrong. Not just dangerous, but unnatural. At that exact moment, back inside the ritual room, the four kneeling figures remained frozen on the floor. Mama Olanike stood silently near the ritual table. Her glasses reflected the flickering lantern light. One of the robed men finally spoke. And now that the boy saw us, what should we do? Mama Olanike slowly lifted a strange carved statue from the table. The wood was dark and polished, shaped like a distorted human face with hollow eyes. She stared at it for a long moment before answering. The spirits already chose him. The room fell silent. Another woman in the robe nervously asked. You mean, he will be the next offering? Mama Olanike shook her head slowly. No. Her lips curled into a thin smile. He is more useful than that. The lantern flame suddenly flickered violently. Shadows on the walls twisted like living shapes. Mama Olanike placed the statue back onto the table. Then she said something that made the entire room uneasy. Some people are not meant to be sacrifices. She looked toward the door where Ton had escaped. They are meant to become something else. The robed figures exchanged worried looks. One man whispered carefully. Mama, you mean a chosen one? Mama Olanike didn't answer immediately. Instead, she slowly dipped her fingers into one of the dark bowls on the table and began drawing a strange symbol on the wood. Then she finally spoke. Yes. Her voice was low, almost reverent. The spirits have been waiting for someone like him. Outside the building, hidden in the darkness of the market, Tunde suddenly felt something strange. A sharp pain shot through his head. He dropped to his knees, clutching his temples. Images flashed inside his mind. Dark rooms. Strange symbols. Voices whispering in a language he had never heard before. And at the center of it all, he saw Mama Olanike, standing in a circle of fire, watching him, smiling. Tunde gasped and the vision disappeared. But one terrifying thought stayed in his mind. She wasn't chasing him. She had already marked him. Tunde woke up suddenly. His entire body was covered in sweat. For a few seconds he didn't know where he was. The small oil lamp in the corner of his room flickered weakly, casting long shadows across the walls. His heart was still racing. That nightmare. No. It didn't feel like a dream. It felt too real. Slowly, Tunde sat up on his thin mattress. His breathing was heavy as he tried to calm himself. But something felt wrong. Very wrong. His head still throbbed from the strange vision he had outside the market. And then he noticed something that made his blood run cold. On the inside of his wrist, there was a symbol. A dark, burned-looking mark. The exact same symbol he saw Mama Olanike drawing on the ritual table. Tunde stared at it in shock. How? He quickly rubbed his wrist. The mark didn't fade. It looked like it had been there for years. A sudden knock hit his door. Tock. 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 Tunde jumped. The knocking was slow. Almost patient. His grandmother's voice came from outside. Tunde, are you awake? Relief washed over him. Yes, Mama. He quickly stood up and opened the door. His grandmother looked at him carefully. You look like you saw a ghost. Tunde forced a small laugh. It's nothing. Just a bad dream. But as she turned to leave, her eyes suddenly froze on his wrist. The symbol. Her face changed instantly. Fear. Real fear. Tunde, where did you get that mark? Tunde felt nervous. You know this symbol. His grandmother slowly stepped into the room and closed the door behind her. Then she whispered something that made the air feel heavier. That mark belongs to the circle of Oja. Tunde frowned. The what? His grandmother sat down slowly, her hands shaking. Many years ago, before you were born, strange things used to happen in this market. She lowered her voice. People disappeared. Tunde felt a chill run down his spine. Disappeared. His grandmother nodded slowly. They said a secret group existed in Oja Market. A group that believed certain people were chosen by spirits. Tunde's stomach tightened. Chosen, for what? But before she could answer, a loud scream suddenly echoed from outside. Both of them froze. The scream came from the direction of Oja Market. Another voice shouted in panic. Someone called the police. There's blood everywhere. Tunde's grandmother stood up immediately. Oh no. Tunde rushed to the window and looked outside. Villagers were running toward the market with lanterns. Something terrible had happened. He turned back to his grandmother. But her face had turned pale. She whispered something that made Tunde's heart sink. It has started again. 20 minutes later. The market was full of people. Lantern lights flickered as villagers gathered around one of the fruit stalls. Ton slowly pushed through the crowd. Then he saw it. A man was lying on the ground. Dead. His eyes were wide open with terror. But that wasn't the worst part. Carved into the wooden stall beside him was the same symbol on Ton's wrist. The crowd murmured nervously. Some people whispered prayers. Others looked around in fear. Then suddenly, the crowd parted. Mama Olanike slowly walked into the scene. Her calm expression was almost disturbing. She looked at the body, then at the symbol. And finally, her eyes met Ton's. For a moment, no one spoke. Then she gave him a very small smile. Not a kind smile. A knowing smile. As if everything happening was exactly what she expected. Ton felt his chest tighten. Because in that moment, he realized something horrifying. The symbol on his wrist had started glowing faintly. And Mama Olanike was the only person who noticed. The police sirens echoed through the narrow streets of Oja Market, but strangely, none of the officers dared step inside Mama Olanike's shop. They stopped outside. Watching. Whispering. Ton noticed it immediately. Something about this place made even the authorities uneasy. Inside the shop, the silence felt heavier than before. The broken bowl still lay on the floor where Mama Olanike had dropped it. The strange dark liquid had dried into thin lines that looked almost like ancient symbols spreading across the wooden boards. Ton crouched down. He traced one of the markings with his finger. Cold. Unnaturally cold. This isn't food, he whispered. Kemi stood near the doorway, her breathing still shaky from what they had just witnessed. What do you mean? She asked. Before Ton could answer, Mama Olanike suddenly laughed softly. Not the gentle laugh everyone in the village knew. This one was low, ancient, almost tired. You children should not look where your eyes are not ready to see, she said calmly. The room grew colder. Ton slowly turned toward her. Mama, what is under this shop? For the first time, Mama Olanike's smile disappeared. The candles on the shelves flickered violently as if a wind had passed through the closed room. Then she spoke. Something older than this market. The floor suddenly creaked beneath them. A deep rumbling sound echoed below the wooden boards. Kemi grabbed Ton's arm. Did you feel that? But Ton was already staring at the ground. The markings on the floor were glowing faintly now, forming a circular pattern. A ritual circle. Mama Olanike walked toward the center of the shop slowly. Her footsteps sounded heavier than before. You see, she said quietly, people think Oja Market feeds the village. She looked directly into Ton's eyes. But the truth is, the village feeds something beneath the market. Suddenly, the floorboards cracked open. A hidden wooden trapdoor slid aside, revealing a narrow staircase descending into darkness. Cold air rushed upward. It carried a smell of earth, smoke, and something metallic. Blood. Kemi covered her mouth. Oh God. Ton leaned forward slightly, trying to see deeper into the darkness. At the bottom of the stairs, faint red candlelight flickered. And then, he saw it. Stone walls covered in ancient Yoruba ritual symbols. Strange clay masks hanging from chains. And in the center of the underground chamber, a massive black pot sitting over a ritual fire. The same pot Mama Olanike used in her shop. But this one was far larger. Large enough to feed hundreds. Or sacrifice something far worse. Mama Olanike stood beside them now. Her voice was soft again. Almost motherly. You wanted to know my secret. She gestured toward the stairs. Now you will see where the food for this market truly comes from. Kemi stepped back immediately. "We are not going down there." But Ton didn't move. Because something else had caught his attention. From the darkness below, he heard whispering. Dozens of voices. Weak. Crying. Begging. And then one voice rose above the others. A small child's voice. "Mama, please let us go." Kemi's eyes widened in horror. But Mama Olanike only sighed. "The pot must never go empty," she whispered. Then suddenly, the candles around the room blew out at once. Darkness swallowed the shop. And in that darkness, something below the staircase began moving. Slow. Heavy. Climbing. Up. Toward them. The darkness inside Mama Olanike's shop became suffocating. Only the faint red glow from the underground chamber illuminated the room now. The staircase leading down looked like the mouth of something alive, breathing slowly. Ton felt his heartbeat pounding in his ears. Then the whispering voices from below suddenly stopped. Complete silence. Kemi clutched Ton's arm tightly. "Something is coming," she whispered. And she was right. From the darkness beneath the stairs came the sound of heavy dragging footsteps. Scrr. Scrr. Like something with enormous weight was pulling itself across the stone floor. Ton forced himself to look down the staircase again. The red candlelight flickered violently. Then something moved inside the chamber. A shadow far larger than a human shape slowly passed across the walls. Kemi gasped. That's not a person." Mama Olanike remained perfectly calm. Almost respectful. She slowly bowed her head toward the staircase. "It wakes because it is hungry," she said softly. Ton turned toward her in shock. "What is down there?" Mama Olanike's eyes reflected the red glow from below. "Something older than this town," she replied. "Older than the market, older than the village itself." The dragging sound grew louder. Closer. Suddenly, a massive clawed hand gripped the edge of the staircase. Kemi screamed. The hand was grey, cracked like ancient stone, with long black nails that scraped against the wooden floor. Another hand appeared. Then a shape slowly began pulling itself upward. Ton stumbled backward. Whatever was climbing those stairs was far too large to be human. Mama Olanike finally spoke again. "For generations, my family has kept the pot full," she said quietly. "The village eats, and it sleeps." Ton's eyes widened. "You've been feeding that thing?" Mama Olanike nodded slowly. "If it wakes fully, the entire village dies." The creature's head finally rose above the staircase. Kemi covered her mouth to stop herself from screaming again. Its face looked almost human, but stretched and distorted. Its skin looked like cracked clay. And its mouth was filled with rows of sharp teeth stained dark. The creature sniffed the air. Then its hollow eyes locked onto Ton. The whispers returned instantly. But now they were louder. Hundreds of voices speaking at once. "Hungry, hungry, hungry." Mama Olanike stepped forward calmly. She grabbed a small wooden bowl from the table and filled it with the dark liquid from the ritual pot. Then she placed it on the floor in front of the creature. "Eat," she commanded softly. The creature paused. Then slowly lowered its head toward the bowl. But suddenly, it stopped. Its nose twitched again. Then its eyes turned away from the bowl. Toward Kemi. The creature hissed. "Fresh." Kemi froze in terror. Ton stepped in front of her immediately. "No." Mama Olanike's calm expression finally cracked. "No, that's not the offering," she said sharply. But the creature had already started crawling forward. Its massive body dragged itself across the floor. Ignoring the bow. Ignoring Mama Olanike. It wanted something alive. The whispers turned into desperate screams now. Blood, blood, blood. Kemi began crying. Tunde, it's coming. Tunde's mind raced. Then he remembered the ritual markings glowing earlier on the floor. The circle. He looked down. The faint lines were still visible. Suddenly he understood something terrifying. This shop isn't feeding it, he whispered. It's a prison. Mama Olanike's eyes widened. Because Tunde had just discovered the truth. The pot, the rituals, the sacrifices. They were never meant to feed the creature. They were meant to keep it trapped. And now, because of their interference, the ritual circle was breaking. The creature let out a deep growl. Its massive hand smashed against the floor. Crack! One of the glowing ritual lines shattered. Mama Olanike screamed. No! If the circle breaks completely. But it was too late. The creature slowly stood taller. Stronger. Freer. And its eyes locked onto the entire shop. The hunger returns. The monster smiled. And outside in Oja Market, dogs began howling. Because something ancient had just begun waking up. The crack across the ritual circle spread slowly across the wooden floor. A faint red glow leaked through the broken line like burning veins. Mama Olanike's face turned pale. No, she whispered. The seal is weakening. The creature straightened its massive body. For the first time it stood fully upright inside the shop, its head almost touching the ceiling. Its cracked grey skin shifted like old stone, and its hollow eyes glowed faintly in the red candlelight. Kemi trembled behind Tunde. Tunde, what is that thing? Before he could answer, Mama Olanike spoke. It is called Egbiara, she said quietly. A hunger spirit older than Oja Market. Long ago our ancestors trapped it beneath this ground. My family was chosen to guard it, and keep it sleeping. The creature dragged one claw slowly across the broken ritual line. The glow dimmed further. For generations, Mama Olanike continued, the pot, the rituals, the offerings, they were never meant to feed it. They were meant to strengthen the prison. Tunde's stomach tightened. So the rumors, the disappearances. Necessary, Mama Olanike said coldly. Small sacrifices to prevent a greater disaster. The creature suddenly inhaled deeply, smelling the air like a starving animal. Then its gaze shifted again. Directly to Kemi. Fresh life, it whispered in a distorted voice. Kemi froze. The creature stepped forward. Crack! Another ritual line shattered beneath its foot. Mama Olanike quickly grabbed the ritual talisman from the table and threw it onto the floor. The charm burst into bright orange flames, forcing the creature to pause. But the pause only lasted a moment. The spirit smiled. The prison is breaking, it growled. Outside, thunder roared across Oja Market. Tunde suddenly realized something horrifying. The circle had not broken by accident. Someone had intentionally weakened the ritual. And if the final seal shattered, the entire village would become the creature's feast. Thunder roared above Oja Market as the creature's shadow stretched across Mama Olanike's shop. The ritual circle was fading. Only a few glowing lines still pulsed faintly on the floor. Mama Olanike's hands trembled as she grabbed another talisman, but the creature only laughed, a deep, hollow sound that vibrated through the walls. The prison weakens, it growled. Tunde quickly helped Kemi step backward toward the door. We need to leave, he whispered. But Mama Olanike suddenly shouted. No. If you leave now, It will follow you into the market. The creature slowly turned its head. Its hollow eyes scanned the room, then suddenly locked onto someone standing near the door. A quiet figure. Someone who had been silent the entire time. The local police officer, Inspector Baligan. Ton frowned. Baligan had arrived earlier when the crowd gathered outside, but he had barely spoken since entering the shop. Now the creature looked at him with strange recognition. "You," the spirit whispered. Mama Olanike's expression froze. Baligan slowly removed his police cap. Then he smiled. A cold, deliberate smile. "You kept it sleeping for too long, Mama Olanike," he said calmly. Ton felt a chill run through his body. "What are you talking about?" Baligan stepped forward and casually kicked one of the remaining ritual charms aside. The glowing line on the floor instantly died out. Mama Olanike gasped. You were weakening the circle." Baligan nodded. "For months," he said. "Every disappearance, every broken seal, it was me." Kemi stared at him in disbelief. "But why would you release that thing?" Baligan's smile widened. "Because the village has lived in fear for generations," he said. Then he turned toward the creature. "And I made a deal." The monster's hollow eyes gleamed with hunger. Baligan spread his arms slowly. "Freedom for it." He pointed directly at Tunde and Kemi. "And power for me." The creature stepped forward eagerly. The final glowing line on the floor flickered weakly. One more break. And the ancient prison beneath Oja Market would collapse forever. The last glowing ritual line flickered weakly beneath the creature's massive foot. Inspector Baligan smiled as thunder shook the roof of Mama Olanike's shop. "After tonight," he said calmly, "Oja Market will belong to me." The hunger spirit, Egbiara, towered behind him like a living nightmare. Its hollow eyes burned with excitement. "Break the final seal," the creature whispered. Baligan slowly lifted his foot toward the last glowing line on the floor. But suddenly, Mama Olanike stepped forward. "You fool," she said quietly. Baligan laughed. "You're too late, old woman." Mama Olanike shook her head. "No," she replied softly. "You misunderstood the ritual." Baligan frowned. "What?" Mama Olanike pointed toward the creature. "This prison was never only about seals." She looked directly at Baligan. "It also required a guardian sacrifice." The creature suddenly froze. Its eyes shifted from the glowing line to Baligan. For the first time, fear crossed the inspector's face. "What are you saying?" Mama Olanike's voice remained calm. "For generations, someone from my bloodline fed the spirit just enough to keep it weak." She paused. "But if someone tries to break the prison completely?" Her eyes hardened. "The spirit takes that person instead." Baligan stepped back nervously. "No, that wasn't part of the deal." The creature's massive hand slowly grabbed his shoulder. Baligan screamed. "You promised me power." The spirit leaned closer, its cracked mouth stretching into a monstrous grin. "I promised freedom." With terrifying strength, the creature dragged Baligan toward the staircase leading beneath the shop. His screams echoed through the chamber. Then, silence. The ritual circle suddenly flared bright red again. The broken lines slowly began repairing themselves. The prison was restoring. Ton stared at Mama Olanike in shock. "You planned this?" Mama Olanike looked exhausted. "I only waited for the spirit to choose its true offering." Outside, dawn slowly rose over Oja Market. The whispers faded. But before disappearing into the darkness below, the spirit's voice echoed one final warning. "Next time, the hunger may choose someone else." Mama Olanike quietly closed the trapdoor. But deep beneath the market, something ancient was still awake. And that was the terrifying secret of Mama Olanike and the dark ritual beneath Oja Market. But the real question is, was the spirit truly satisfied, or is it still waiting for its next sacrifice? Tell me in the comments. Do you think Mama Olanike is protecting the village, or hiding something even darker? If you enjoyed this African horror story, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next terrifying story. Because trust me, the next story might be even darker than this one. And remember, some secrets are buried beneath villages for a reason.